Live.
Hi everyone, Lindsay Horvath, your mayor here. Wanted to welcome you to the WeHo Reads series. On behalf of all of my colleagues in the city of West Hollywood, it is our absolute pleasure to welcome you. This is part of our city's arts division's efforts to engage people in the creative arts and the literary arts. We have so much fun programming, whether it's our city's poet laureate, who brings such fantastic work to the city, whether it's the Little Free Library series or even Drag Queen Story Hour. We find so many ways to bring the literary arts to our community, to people of all ages in all different ways. I want to thank our staff for the work that they do to make this possible, and for anyone and everyone who is participating today and through the whole series. We hope that you enjoy today's programming and that you'll continue to engage with WeHo, the creative city. And thanks once again on behalf of the city of West Hollywood.
Hi, my name is Mike Che. I'm the arts coordinator for the city of West Hollywood, and welcome to the final event of the WeHo Reads 2021 season. As always, we want to thank our mayor and city council for their generous support of this program, which is an annual program that comes back every year. And of course, we want to thank our wonderful producers for this season, Amanda Fletcher and Bear Williams, who we'll meet in just a moment. And of course, we want to thank all the fantastic authors and poets who have joined us throughout this whole series, and you for joining us tonight. As I mentioned, this is the final event of the WeHo Read series, but you can still watch all of the past events on the city's YouTube channel. That's at youtube.com/WeHoArts, WEHO.ARTS. And this is also part of the city's One City, One Pride LGBTQ Arts Festival. We've got over 20 free exhibitions and events that are taking place as part of One City, One Pride. They're fantastic. I hope that you check out a couple of them, and you can go to weho.org/pride to find out about those. Thank you very much, and please enjoy tonight's program.
All right. I guess that means I come back, right, Jayson?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm playing with our spotlight, so I figure out how to get myself here in the top of this video stream. Thank you to everyone for coming to our last event in the WeHo Reads series. Dare Williams and I had so much fun planning this, so much fun working with the city. We're so thrilled to be able to host Jubi Arriola-Headley and Rajiv Mohabir, and my partner in crime, Dare Williams, will be reading tonight. So that's why, you know, if you've been watching us all season long, you know that normally there's only one of us on camera per event. But I wanted to be the one to introduce Dare tonight. And also, we just heard from Jayson from Elephants with Guns. Elephants with Guns is a downtown Los Angeles-based band who play South Asian-inspired grunge, gaze, and post-rock instrumentals. Their cinematic and atmospheric songs, characterized by dramatic peaks and valleys and also lighting, as we saw with Jayson, have earned them shows at literary events for PEN America and national film festivals such as the Indian Film Festival of Los Angeles. Their debut album, released by Good Family Records, is now available on all major streaming platforms. You can connect with them at elephantswithguns.com, and I did actually drop that into the chat already, so you can just follow that link. So you may already know this, but our series mission was to amplify the voices of authors whose work we love and admire and want to give the spotlight and want to put some dollars into their pockets. We were deeply committed to amplifying underrepresented, marginalized voices and uplifting artists who have been significantly affected by the pandemic. As an expression of our mission, we must respect and uphold the historical and contemporary presence of Indigenous peoples throughout California, especially in the West Hollywood area. We acknowledge that we reside on the historic homeland of Indigenous peoples who were dispossessed of their land. We recognize the Tongva peoples as the traditional land caretakers of Tavongar, situated in the Los Angeles basin. We acknowledge our presence on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Tongva peoples. And as I mentioned, normally I wouldn't be on screen, but you know, the last few days I've been feeling less than great, and I actually thought that maybe we're going to need to find a different co-host for Dare for this evening, because I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to rally. And Dare's advice was, basically, he said, what if you throw on a wig and that person wearing the wig doesn't feel ill? And I'm like, going with it. It's like the most pride thing I have ever heard. Just throw on your wig and the show must go on. So that's why I'm here introducing my co-host, Dare Williams. A 2019 PEN America Emerging Voices Fellow, Dare Williams is a queer HIV positive poet and artist rooted in Southern California. He's received fellowships from John Ashbery Homeschool and the Frost Place. He's a co-producer of the reading series Word of Mouth, which raises money for communities facing food and nutrition inequities. Dare's poetry has been nominated for a Pushcart Prize, Best of the Net, and Best American Poets 2021. His work has been anthologized in Redshift 5 by Arroyo Seco Press and is featured in Thrush, Exposition Review, Night Heron Barks, Bending Genres, and is forthcoming in The Shore, Altadena Review, and elsewhere. He is currently the co-producer of the WeHo Reads Literature Festival. Let's hear it for Dare Williams.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to produce this series with you, and thanks for everyone who's engaged with us, shared event, shown up to the event, and been with us in the virtual landscape. So tonight, I'm so happy to have Rajiv Mohabir and Jubi Arriola-Headley with me. And when I was thinking about this event, I was thinking about, you know, sort of silent mentors I myself am someone who sort of skirts around academia, and so I've had to find mentors via the sidelines. And I also think of folks who are no longer with us here in body, but who are here with us via their words and foundational work. And I also think about authors whose work I watch closely but have yet to meet or study from, and how often folks find themselves mentorless and have to cobble together a community. And what does that all mean? And what does that all look like? I wanted to invite Jubi and Rajiv to join me in that conversation because I love their poetics, their pedagogy, and I wanted to celebrate them and the work that they continue to do, as well as teach me. So I thought what I would do is I'm going to read a poem from Justin Chin, and then read a couple of my own, and then read a poem from another silent mentor of mine, and read some more, and then hand it over. Justin Chin was a poet, essayist, and performance artist, and was born in Malaysia and lived in San Francisco. Justin died on Christmas Eve 2015 from a stroke related to complications of AIDS. He is often quoted saying, "Every work of art that works as art is a critique." So I'm going to read his poem from his first collection called Bite Hard, and the poem is called Travelogue for Greg. I want to make love to you in 15 hotel rooms in 14 cities. I want to wake with the infant delight of finding your body held between two freshly laundered white sheets, lightly perfumed by the smell of these hotel room staples. In this room, available to all with an open and ready wallet, where hundreds, perhaps thousands have wandered through, and in this bed, where hundreds, perhaps thousands, have slept, have made love in, some frenzied and violent. The spread kicked to the floor, the sheet entangled in sweating limbs, others clean and calm, everything folded away neatly, every act wiped away with hand towels. I will know that in this one night, this container of the temporary, this Tupperware of wanderlust, will know what it means to be stained with the fragments of the ghost of my craving as it flits from one more room, one more city, one more hotel with you. We'll move as early pioneers did, wholly uncertain of what lay ahead, but heart-pounding, anticipating a pool of clear water to cleanse and quench, a goodness, a feasting, a soft place to lay heads, rest bodies. Once I had this daydream. We were traveling together in Tibet. I wondered what it would be like to kiss you in a light December Tibetan drizzle, how the thunder would grumble in a strange tongue, how the trees would smell different, the air different. And amidst all this foreignness, I would realize the shocking familiarity of your kiss. I would know what you taste like, even as jasmine and saffron melt on my tongue, as patchouli burners cloud my nose. I would hold you to my mouth and say, "This is the first of a million kisses. Come, take it from me." So that was Justin Chin. And now I offer you a couple of my own. Pulaski County. My shadow wakes from the depression bed, thirsty from guilt. They tried to sell me God, but I didn't have the money. I was hopeful, gliding in and out, unpressured. I was a thief made stronger by the sirens of this city. I wasn't just the water, I was the rain, torrential and constant. I'm an empty field glazed over like a newly purchased gun. I'm a yellow porch light calling moths to its glow. I'm desperate in this motel room, waiting for the phone to ring. All I have on me are these memories of you. One where you are licking a stolen knife, the sting of metal, a song on your lips. Or how about this one? You holding on as long as you could. My name resting in your mouth, soft as a bulb, hard to pronounce. This next one, the title is a name for an HIV medication. Atripla. When you found my meds tucked away in my overnight bag, did you read the label and say the name to yourself out loud? Had you seen me take them in secret while telling you a joke, or while brushing my teeth in the other room? What I was thinking while I swallowed, how long I would wait to tell you. Did you notice the size, the color, like early morning gray? The inscription of 123, like 123 down the hatch, how I am taking in all my history. And for so many of us, we keep it in because illness goes so far back through the decades and fear wants to live in every second of me. And I have been here before with a secret on my lips that I bury between gum and teeth, and not even my mother knows. But now this pill is taking over and my head is spinning. And so I fall into bed, needing to be held, but I find I'm cradling the outside of you instead. So now I'm going to read a poem by Gabrielle Calvacaresi. Their work resonates with me so much because they show me wonder and beauty and splendor, and they remind me why I choose to live. And they teach me about remaining present and the power of looking and to reimagine new economies. This is called Praise House, the New Economy, after and for Ross Gay. The rosemary bush blooming its unabashed blue, also dumplings filled with steam and soup, so my mouth fills and I bubble over with laughter, little things, people kissing on bicycles, being able to walk up the stairs and run back down. Joanna's garden after the long flight to Tel Aviv, not being detained like everyone thought I would. The man with dreadlocks and a perfect green shirt walking home from work. One cold beer before I drink it and get sick. How peaches mold into compost in a single day, orange to gray to darkness into her ankles taste, the skin right under the knob, delicate as a tomatillo shroud. All the animals that talk to me, that I finally let them talk to me. The blessing of waking early enough to watch the fox bathe itself. The suction of a man's meeting another man's on the street. Every single person looking up to see them. Bros, yes, but lovely in the golden light, with brims swung to the back. I want shoulders like they have. Want my waist to taper to an ass built like the Davids. I admit it. This body's not enough for me. Still, I love it. Al B. Shore blasting out a Nissan Sentra's windows, bow ties, ridiculous blues, my mother's seizures, specifically that I don't have them, that I could answer Ross's call or not because we live harmonious and are always talking somehow. Tapestries with their gluttony of deer, fig perfume, and also cypress, boxer briefs and packing socks and jockey shorts, strap-ons, soft and hard. Welcome in her hand and in mine as I greet the real me. The little shop in Provincetown and the speckled dog that licks itself in that fresco of the crucifixion. Mary Oliver, I love her, I really do. The baseball she gave me that says go Sox, though I love the Orioles. Old Bay on all my shrimp, and justice, and cities burning if people need to burn them to get free. My grandmother gardening in the late night, Sun Ra, the first time, Paris, even though I've never been there, natal plums, tattoos everlasting, clouds, Orion's belt, pushing inside her with both hands holding myself up, my weight, her grabbing and saying, God, fuck, the neighbors, Casablanca, not knowing anything, angels, mashed potatoes, good red wine. Gabrielle Calvacresi, that's from Rocket Fantastic. It's incredible. So I offer two of my own. And this one's for Gabrielle Calvacresi. I read your poems and I make a sound. And the sound is a wide-mouthed saxophone. And the saxophone cries at all the films. And the films are of the people I used to know. And the knowing is what I can't escape. And the escape has been laid out in front of me. And the me who is running is searching for light. And the light comes on like it knows I'm coming. And the coming of days are what keeps me going. And the going of others is what keeps me grieving. And the grieving is a heavy tree inside me falling. And the falling is continued every day through stillness. And the stillness is what I desire. So this is my last poem, and then we'll hear Jayson again. How to make a deer collapse. Start by getting him right where you want him, soothing the soft part of his head. Maybe it's a truck and you are the driver. Start by saying you are taking him somewhere, a place he's never heard of. Start by making sure whatever is in the rear view will shrink. Tell him that an engine idling is love. Tell him that a slamming door is love. Tell him that searching is for fools. Tell him there's no use in praying. Tell him to get out of your face. Tell him to forget about dreams. Tell him anyone who's anyone has a mother to say, once upon a time. A father to say, as far as the eye can see. So don't even try to look. Then say, forget everything you've seen here, even the name of this town. Then take your foot off the brake. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much. So now I'd like to bring to the virtual stage, Jubi Arriola-Headley. So Jubi was my last real in-person hug right before like lockdown got real serious. We met at a cafe and it was raining and we didn't know, you know. I'll always have that memory because we were in this unknown space and we proceeded with a gesture of communion, which speaks to the community that I always aspire to be a member of. I first became aware of Jubi's work through PEN America as he was an Emerging Voices Fellow a year before me, and I was in awe of his power and inventiveness. And I also love that we are both diehard Prince fans. What Jubi's work teaches me is we are all writing into, within, towards community, because violence is always around us, to reach for something beyond. As I engage with Jubi's work, investigating Black masculinity, queerness, sexual exploration, I also learn to look at my own inherited ideas around those subjects and to use Jubi's words, ask myself, how can we unmake this form and build something different for ourselves? Jubi Arriola-Headley, he, they, is a Black queer poet, storyteller, and first-generation United Statesian who lives with his husband in South Florida and whose work explores themes of masculinity, vulnerability, rage, tenderness, and joy. He's a 2018 PEN America Emerging Voices Fellow and holds an MFA from the University of Miami. His poems have been published with Ambit, Beloit, Poetry Journal, Literary Hub, Nimrod, Southern Humanities Review, The Nervous Breakdown, and elsewhere. Jubi's debut collection is available now from Sibling Rivalry Press, entitled Original Kink. Black Lives Matter, Trans Lives Matter, Stop Asian Hate, Art is Labor, Abolish Policing, Eat the Rich, and Free Palestine. Here, here. Jubi, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Dare. This invitation means the world. As I think about community, I feel like I write in with and toward it. And I really appreciate your gesture about bringing folks who are no longer with us into the room. Being of the generation I am, there's a whole host of Black, gay, same-gender loving queer men who are no longer with us, that were my beacons, that were my lights, that were my guideposts, who were suddenly snatched from me due to a confluence of events that began with the government's refusal to save their lives. And when I think of the people I want to bring in the room, I think often of Essex Hemphill. There's a, I don't know if you can see it, it's backwards, I realize now. There's an anthology called In the Life that captures the voices of dozens of Black gay men from the late 80s and early 90s that I think is essential reading. And I'm going to read a poem. I'm going to start off by reading a poem by Essex Hemphill. He also had his own collection, Ceremonies, brilliant. The cover of my book is actually inspired by it, as it's much of the content within. Unfortunately, it's out of print, but someday it's really a goal of mine to try to get back into print. So I'm going to pray that I find the resources and the knowledge to do that. But this poem is called For My Own Protection. I want to start an organization to save my life. If whales, snails, dogs, cats, Chrysler, and Nixon can be saved, the lives of Black men are priceless and can be saved. We should be able to save each other. I don't want to wait for the Heritage Foundation to release a study saying Black people are almost extinct. I don't want to be the living dead, pacified with drugs, sex, and rock and roll. If a human chain can be formed around nuclear missile sites, then surely Black men can form human chains around Anacostia, Harlem, South Africa, Wall Street, Hollywood, each other. If we have to take tomorrow with blood, are we ready? Do our S-curls and dreadlocks and Phillies make us any more ready than a Bush or a conga line? I'm not concerned about the attire of a soldier. All I want to know is, for my own protection, is, are we capable of whatever, whenever? That is Essex Hemphill. The first poem I'm going to read for you this evening, and I want to start by saying that as much as I love the material in original Kink, something told me this evening to read all new material, so I hope you enjoy it. Cross everything. This was all stuff written in the past few months. I was just so gratified after the year we had, that I am still able to write, that I want to share some of this material. This poem is called Subphylum Crustacea. I no longer flinch when he touches me. I woke this morning to find him whistling daybreak into the small of my back, counterclockwise in rounds about the size of the wide end of a shot glass. In my dreaming, I'd been screaming at a small army of cockroaches, each about the width of a cast iron skillet, meaning to make a meal of me. In dreams, they're screams, yes, but to the waking, your inner wails sound more like whimpers. I thanked him for his kindness. Did you know that cockroaches and blue crabs come from the same ass subphylum, Crustacea? Both thriving despite global warming. I'll be thinking on that next time I'm in Baltimore. From there, your crabs and cockroaches get separated by class, not unlike how it works for humans in life. Some gifts we want big, some we want unmade. I wonder how that works. I have thought before this morning I wanted the biggest of every pretty trinket I could wrap my mouth around. Turns out small can be a salve sometimes. Took me years to train my skin to surrender to his touch. What blues to think some fingers will leave no trace. Seed this work, never know the linger of another man. So that's one of my new ones. This next one is called Letter to My Nether Regions. Dear low tea, dear tea-stained teeth, dear tea bags under my eyes, dear eyes, dear precious wet stone, dear refraction of light, dear ribboning skin, dear burnt sugar hue, dear ancestors, dear Taino, dear Kalinago, you good and peaceful folk, dear colonizer, dear Ashanti, dear Ghana, dear Benin bronze face, dear cheekbones, dear spread nose, dear thick lips, dear cock uncut, dear shower, dear grower, dear upward arch, dear low and loose, dear freedom swing, dear nappy head, dear sloping shoulders, dear man spread, dear spread legs, dear thick thighs, dear sandbag breasts, sandbag belly, sandbag buttocks, dear Bigfoot, dear liquid hips, dear blistered nipples, dear ears, dear fear, dear fingers, dear fists, dear nobody, dear Lord, I still feel like a stranger here. I believe I have enough time to read one more poem by me and one by another ancestor who's no longer with us. This poem is called Roadmap to the Interregnum. Just in case you're unfamiliar with the word interregnum, it's kind of a liminal space after a power has been deposed and before a nation or a community knows what's next. And this poem's called Roadmap to the Interregnum. Listen, listen, my loves. The path toward liberation is thick with bramble. It'll need to be cleared, and that's long labor. And based on our history, who we've been, who can blame us for not wanting to wear a yoke, to hitch our purpose to a plow, to be the mule? Still, someone's got to do the work, and it might as well be the poets. So slide y'all into your long, long sleeves and your thigh-high boots and grab you a machete. At first, it'll feel ill to you, that tool. It'll wriggle out your hands like an ornery child, but I promise you, you'll hit the gist of it. I've seen a 6-year-old scamper up the full sky height of a palm tree and, freeing herself from gravity with only the muscles of her thighs, claim a clutch of coconuts with a single whack. One for her trouble, to nurse her thirst, the rest to market, to goddamn to market. The machete's worst purpose is to clear the path. You'll need a torch, too, to burn away the underbrush, and thus matches and next, an accelerant. Your rage will do just fine. As you clamber along, clearing the helter skeletons of those who raged before you, mind you don't trip over, and resist the urge to stick a finger where it don't belong, like an eye socket. You know damn well it's disrespectful. What you do when you stumble upon an ancestor is, you say, not a prayer, never a prayer, a simple ashe. Then you take a sip of your coconut water right from the source in the manner of a toast. Tuck their blessing under the brim of your belonging, then be about it. Move on. Knife your way through the noise, the tangle, head straight to the capital, the source of all that stench, what's been wooing you all along. Burn it. Don't think, don't blink, don't bluster, burn it all. Tender tinder for your alms. Now, you're almost free. What comes next is beyond the event horizon, not unknown, though unknown to you. Between you and that moment is doubt. There's always gonna be some whimperer, some simp slacking at the last gasp. They'll want to grab your coconut, use the water to douse the flames. No worries. What you'll need to do is grab your machete and whack off their hands. So I'm going to close with another poem from an ancestor, a short one. And I'm literally at 18 seconds, so it's going to be quick. This poem is by Brad Johnson, and it's called Protest Poem. And it was written decades ago, but feels so current. The press is preparing us for a war soon. I would like to become a soldier and fight my way to the finest gorilla I could find, lick the musky sweat from his body and let him make love to me, warm my ass between his thighs, eroticize the soil, fuck the war. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jubi. And now we'll hear a little more from Jayson. Thank you. Now I'd like to bring to the virtual stage Rajiv Mohabir. I had the pleasure of being in a workshop with Rajiv and was in awe of the care he provided for the workshop space. Rajiv's work always shows me the power of myth and myth making, what we discover when we interrogate whiteness and the colonizer's English, and to be unafraid of the experimental and to ask myself, what does it mean to search for family and the journey we take as queer people living on this earth, and how known and unknown histories affect us? Nicole Cooley says Rajiv Mohabir is one of the most important poets writing today, and I couldn't agree more. Rajiv Mohabir is the author of The Cowherds Son by Tupelo Press 2017, winner of the 2015 Kudiman Prize, Eric Hoffer Honorable Mention 2018, and The Taxidermist Cut from Four Way Books 2016, winner of the Four Way Books Intro to Poetry Prize, finalist for the Lambda Literary Award for Gay Poetry in 2017, and the translator of I Even Regret the Night, Holly Songs of Demerara 1916 by Kaya Press 2019, which received a Penheim Translation Fund Grant Award and the Harold Morton Landon Translation Award from the Academy of American Poets. His memoir, Anti-Man, won Reckless Books' New Immigrant Writing Prize and is now released. And his new poetry collection, Cutlish from Four Way, is also being released this year, as well as a chapbook co-authored by Rushi Vyas titled Between Us, Not Half a Saint. Currently, he is an assistant professor of poetry in the MFA program at Emerson College and translations editor at Waxwing Journal. Rajiv, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Derek, for such a wonderful introduction, and thank you all for being here tonight. And I want to thank the folks at WeHo, for your care and dedication, and to Amanda and Jayson and to Jubi as well. Thank you for such wonderful blessings of your words tonight. I'm in awe, and I'm so honored to be here and in your company. So I really love the idea of talking about mentors and poetry and those people who are no longer here or people who are here who have really informed our work. And for me, excuse me if this is if I've said this a little too much in my life, but the work of Arriola-Headley, it has been so incredibly instrumental to me in thinking around form, release, experimentation. In his first posthumous collection, Call Me Ishmael Tonight, the collection of ghazals that he produces is just every bend of language, just moves me so incredibly. And so tonight I'm going to read for you the poem from Call Me Ishmael Tonight called Tonight. And it begins with an epigraph from Lawrence Hope, who I believe was writing in 1908. Pale hands I loved beside the Shalimar. Where are you now? Who lies beneath your spell tonight? Whom else from rapture's road will you expel tonight? Those fabrics of Kashmir to make me beautiful, trinket to gem, me to adorn, how tell tonight? I beg for haven, prisons, let open your gates. A refugee from belief seeks a cell tonight. God's vintage loneliness has turned to vinegar. All the archangels, their wings frozen, fell tonight. Lord, cried the idols, don't let us be broken. Only we can convert the infidel tonight. Mughal ceilings, let your mirrored convexities multiply me at once under your spell tonight. He's freed some fire from ice in pity for heaven. He's left open for God the doors of hell tonight. In the heart's veined temple, all statues have been smashed. No priest in saffron is left to toll its knell tonight. God, limit these punishments. There's still judgment day. I'm a mere sinner. I'm no infidel tonight. Executioners near the woman at the window. Damn you, Elijah. I'll bless Jezebel tonight. The hunt is over, and I hear the call to prayer fade into that of the wounded gazelle tonight. My rivals for your love, you've invited them all? This is mere insult. This is no farewell tonight. And I, Shahid, only am escaped to tell thee, God sobs in my arms. Call me Ishmael tonight. You know, it's a big thing to read somebody's work, you know, that has really inspired you. This poem is just something that I return to again and again, and it's like a multifaceted gem that every time I come back to this poem, I'm so incredibly moved. And, you know, to talk a little bit about my own process, I am going to read a couple of poems called chutney poems for you tonight. That are inspired by Agha Shahid Ali's own migration of form from the Kashmiri and Urdu tradition of the ghazal, which is a musical tradition from you know, the region that he brings into English masterfully, first through the translation of Faiz Ahmed Faiz in the Rebel Silhouette. But you know, here, you know, my new book of poems, and this is a galley. I'm not sure I'm supposed to show you, but this is called Katlish. You know, it's coming out from Four-Way in September. And these are my experimentations with form called chutney poems. And it's based on a song or songs by the Trinidadian singer named Sundar Popo. You know, he all inspired by a couple of songs, you know, and I'll tell you some of the words of some of the songs that you know, have been inspiring. For me, tell me the number of your plane. And the words are, tell me the number of your plane, my darling, when we gonna meet up again? And then there's another one, a scorpion sting me, I feel I go dead. Darling, if you love me, come lie down in my bed. And I just love that. One thing to know about the chutney poem is that the chorus is in Guyanese Hindi, Guyanese Hindustani that my grandmother spoke. And this first one is called Indo-Queer 1. Toke aise naam gandu or faggot de dela, toke paki or anti-man padela. Mehendi marks on your palms betray your body, as do the jaggery ducts of your palate. The night you tear into the world, the pundit opens his book to line your spine with stars. Your Lyman sunburn sting of salt and silk. Those pretty boys can't take your pepper, can't tread the Caribbean brine, wild and wide in your tongue. Can't mend the cutlass gash of your eyes. Before empire's letters spelled out homo, you tied saris and danced Launda Kinach. Now the white Christian wants to bind you down in his cellar, horny to tear open your throat. They give you the name ass fuck, faggot. They call you these things, Paki and anti-man. Sapera, the snake charmer. So this poem is things that you need to know about this is that the speaker of this entire collection might be in his late 20s, living in New York City and playing with all kinds of like hookup apps. So this one is called Sapera, the snake charmer. Jamin ke matti ke niche ka sutal hai, hirde ke jadwa mein kaun ujhal hai. What is January's ice, if not starling's ghosts on the park's oaks? A cloud of star-breasted feathers lifts skyward. Your curse, a skilled, tar-tongued tune, whose frost I cannot stop my ears from heating. My skin scales over with copper coins. You rest my red coils in your bamboo basket and pick my nickels off one by one. My captor love, I once relied on our heat. No need to knock my teeth. The cobra who eats dead meat for months runs dry of venom. O Sapera, your flute, a dowsing rod, bereft of bird song, stokes thirst in my woven basket, and I'm unable to strike your reed or heel. What sleeps under the earth? What entangles itself amongst the heart's roots? The last poem that I'm going to read for you tonight is going to come from another mentor, poet. And, she's no longer here, but she represents to me, the height of like South Asian femme radiance. And this is Mina Alexander. One of the last poems that she wrote when she was alive. She passed tragically in November of 2018. And this is called Krishna, 3:29 a.m. In a crumpled shirt, so casual for a god, bow tucked loosely under an arm still jittery from battle, he balanced himself on a flat boat painted black. Each wave as I kneel closer, a migrant flag, a tongue with syllables no script can catch. The many births you have passed through, try to remember them as I do mine. Memory is all you have. Still, how much can you bear on your back? You've lost one language, gained another, lost a third. There's nothing you'll inherit, neither per stripes, nor per capita. No plot by the riverbank in your father's village of Kosancheri, or by the burning cart in Varanasi. All you have is a writing hand smeared with ink and little bits of paper, swirling in a violent wind. I am a blue-black child, cheeks swollen with a butterball I stole from Mama's kitchen. Stones and sky and stars melt in my mouth. Wooden spoon in hand, she chased me round and round the tamarind tree. I am musk in the wings of the coil, which nests in that tree. You heard its cry in the jolting bus from Santa Monica to Malibu. After the Ferris wheel, the lovers with their wind-slashed hair, toxic foam on the drifts of the ocean, come the dry cactus lands. The child who crosses the border, water bottle in hand, fallen asleep in the aisle where backpacks and sodden baskets are stashed. Out of her soiled pink skirt whirl these blood-scratched skies and all the singing rifts of story. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rajiv. I love that poem so much. I'm gonna bring Jubi back.
Here I go.
Hello. So let's see if we can get us all three on screen. Here we go. Is my audio okay? I've heard that Mercury has struck. Okay.
It sounds good now.
Great. So thinking about mentorship and lineage, thank you so much again for both of you being here. I wanted to know, like, how is like awareness of lineage or mentorship shaped your work? Do you think about it like when you're sitting down to draft, or is it something that's just around you all the time? And I guess another part of the question of that is, how do you make sure that you keep the work around you, but that you don't get lost in it to where you're copying someone? I know I just threw a lot at you.
I defer to Rajiv.
Well, I think that, like, as far as mentors go, and poets and poetry that I moved by, it's hard to not have them in my head constantly. I think about, the point of drafting for me is to connect my my actual hand to my subconscious, and so like whatever associations emerge. I'm not so worried about copying a mentor. I think that, like, I don't know if there's anything that's really original in the world. And I think that, like, when I imagine lineage, I think of it as, passed down as a folk song, right? Something that, has some kind of, lexical fluidity that we can participate in. And every time that we have some kind of thought, we add something, a new verse to whatever it is. So for example, Aga Shahid Ali is somebody who I really look up to. And, some might think that I'm copying his ideas around form, with my own kind of spin to it. But I think that whether it's copying or whether, these mentors kind of open up space for us, I think is something to consider, or something that I've been thinking about actually when thinking about which poems to read tonight.
How about you, Jubi?
I would concur with pretty much everything Rajiv has said. I don't know how I would move throughout the world without my mentors sort of constantly a part of my understanding. It's not as if when I sit at the computer, I'm thinking I am trying to honor the memory of these people. I'm not thinking that consciously, but they've shaped who I am and who I am as a poet. So my grandmother is in my head. My deceased father is in my head. Friends I've lost are in my head. We all each carry so much with us. And part of whom I carry are so many poets we've lost from that generation and others. There's June Jordan somewhere in here. And I definitely agree with Rajiv. Maybe it's not possible to create something entirely unique on the face of the earth today. But part of what I'm doing in poetry, and part of what I think a lot of poets are doing in poetry, is we're writing towards our ancestors and to the future simultaneously. And we're trying to honor them, and we're trying to sort of make our place in the pantheon they've created for us. So I think that we don't need to be so concerned about copying. I mean, literally, what we're doing is, in our own voices, making meaning in the world, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I sometimes think about, or like where I struggle is like we're constantly talking about voice. So I have to be conscious of like, am I coming out, or am I trying too hard to sound like someone that I've just read? And so I guess I do think about that. But I also think a lot about if poems allow us to talk to ghosts. And I think for like our generation, we have this cloud of death and grief above us because we lost a whole generation of forefathers, mentors. And I sometimes forget that like informs the work. Are you ever conscious about being a mentor to someone else? Do you think about that?
It's funny you ask, because actually this year, I am a mentor to one of the fellows in the Emerging Voices program, which I specifically requested to be. During a conversation, I let it be known I would like to be that. I feel that I have received throughout my life, but particularly in the past few years, such amazing and nurturing mentorship that I feel a need to pay it forward. I feel that there are probably a billion ways to be in community with other poets, but that's one. I feel it's part of the work we're supposed to do. Bring other poets forward, incubate them, create space for them. So many organizations, so many wonderful organizations exist to do this. Kundiman and Kabekanam, Canto Mundo, etc. So, Lambda Literary. This is what we want to do in the world. So I am ever mindful of trying to be a poet that A, sets an example, and B, when I can, create opportunities and spaces for other poets. I think that's part of the work.
Yeah, I love that, Jubi. I love your saying that, in fact, it's about creating a platform for others. And I see that too. Like, my whole philosophy is to, okay, so I did this thing, now I'm going to kick down the door to let as many people in and follow me as possible. And so, with my editing work, that's kind of how I feel as well. With my teaching stuff, like, I think that, like, I can only show up as myself wholly to my teaching. And I do, showing folks how I read poetry and how I make sense of, the world around me, my body as the antenna of spirit, right? And how we can channel these into our writings and what that means for us effectively. And I think that, that's kind of a sacred charge to me, I feel personally, that, this kind of thing. And I used to balk against the idea of being a mentor, because I was like, no, I'll be a pal, I'll be a poetry friend. But I think that more and more, part for me of claiming that space is to say, we are doing something new. Come with me and let's do it together. And so I think it's that I'm learning to embody.
Yeah, I love that. Like, as we are reimagining what is always possible, like bringing along others. I have to say that as your student for the week, Rajiv, you changed the way that I view work and my own work by the exercises you put us through, and I am forever grateful for that. My other question would be that I'm always thinking about folks that aren't often like in a program in academia, but need or are thirsty for community and how they go about finding that. I myself am someone who can bounce around and, get into workshops possibly, or follow people online. I think something that's happened with this whole virtual space in the last year is that I was able to attend things that I wouldn't have been able to, Brooklyn Poetry Project or the Bowery Project, for small fees, or trying to get a scholarship, and you can learn and study from someone. What do you think, what would you say or share your experience of someone who is looking to cobble community and is thirsty for it and says, I don't know how?
Before I ever began to think of myself as a poet, I knew that I wanted to write. And, the MFA was not a thing that I knew about. I had done writing workshop. I had a cousin who had done writing workshops, and she lived in Toronto, and she's also queer. And, she was part of this like women of color writers circle. And I was like so mesmerized by that. I was like, I need to start. I want to be part of this too. But where I was living, it was hard to find folks. I remember accosting someone where I worked, and I was like, "Oh, like, are you a writer? Let's. It would be cool if we wrote together." And I remember him being kind of like, "Oh, well, I'm very good. I was a finalist for Glimmer Train," and my being like, "Oh, like, I feel kind of shut out by this kind of nonsense," and so that kind of broke a part of me. This sounds so sad, but really what I mean to say is that it meant going outside of what was comfortable for me. And it took a kind of bravery and tenacity to kind of like insert myself into things. I mean, in the beginning, it was really hard for me to even say, oh, I want to write poetry. Who wrote poetry except to scribble it in their journals? And that was definitely not something I could tell my parents. Being a younger person, from the Caribbean. Even though we have this like wonderful literary tradition, it's good for other people to do that, just not the child of our family anyway. And so that what came about after that was being on, this was the time of message boards and things like that, and finding folks, and having like a phone chain, and there were 3 other people that I would write with, and we would meet at different people's houses until I went to Vona for the first time, or one of these writing residencies, when I had enough kind of courage to do that kind of thing. And so that's what I would say a little bit of my own kind of struggle has been, was in the beginning.
Yeah, what would I add, if anything? It's interesting, you know, especially as we think about the recent year, and maybe because I have managed to publish a collection, I feel this way, but I've also, in a way, been able to become closer to people that I haven't actually met. And I am 100% certain that this wouldn't have happened this way, but for the pandemic. We've needed to reach out to each other in different ways and reach for community in ways we didn't so much even maybe care about as much this time on March 9th, 2020. I say all that to say that there are all sorts of online venues and groups that you can join, but I also feel like it's still hard. It's still terrifying to reach out to a new person. I so resonate with what Rajiv is saying about that needing that courage and that first leap. Like literally you stop breathing, literally your stomach's in knots. But I say all that to say, I think there's a little more room to reach out to people and try to build community at this moment, because we are so painfully aware of what happens when we don't have community. We've gone through, as a nation, as a world, a collective trauma that has separated us from people. And everybody did not learn that lesson. We know everybody didn't learn that lesson, but so many people did. And I would love to believe that if anybody did, it's the poets. So I would say, even if you have to do it gingerly, reaching out to other poets and saying, do you know how you can connect me with things, is a gesture worth making. I can't promise you at all that every poet will A, respond, or B, respond in a way you like, but some might.
Agreed. Thank you for that. So I was thinking today, actually, I hadn't planned on asking this question, but I was sort of in this conversation with this artist who was a photographer, and she had said something where she felt like, because the work is constantly a gift and an offering, that she felt the work isn't fully complete until it has a viewer. And I was thinking about, is our work as poets not complete unless we have a reader? And I was thinking more about, like, are there poems that you only write for yourself and not maybe just like drafts? Or does everything you make, are you thinking that it's going to one day or possibly be published? Are you thinking that is at the finish line? Does that make sense?
That's not where I start writing. When I'm writing, I'm not thinking of whether or not it'll be published or even whether or not it'll be read. I might be thinking about who I'm writing to, but that's the you of the poem, not necessarily some external audience that reads it in a journal or a collection. I'm very in the moment of the poem. That said, it's a fascinating question, because I like to say I'm always writing toward community. One of the most gratifying things about publishing a collection, and someday soon you will be feeling this, one of the most gratifying things is the conversations you get to engage in with other poets. And when they see your work and hear you and say something, you're like, yes, that's what I was doing. That's what I was aiming for. That's what I was trying. It's like a wonderful, uplifting moment. And I've been able to have a couple of those conversations in interviews and in conversations on Zooms. And it's part of the process, or part of being part of a poetry community. It's a wonderful feeling. And it's hard to say that the viewer shouldn't matter when you also say you're trying to create community. At some point, if you're not engaging someone other than yourself, can you be creating community? So all that to say, I don't have an answer, but it's a fascinating question I'm going to roll with and tussle with now that you put it in my head.
Yeah, Jubi, I think I would agree with you in that, like, my answer changes to this question, like, every single day. Like, what did I eat this morning, kind of thing. Like, and I go back to something that I heard Lee and Lee say once when I was in Kudibon. He said that, he thinks of it in this way, like how the poet addresses the daemon or the deity, right? And the audience are the people who hear. But I mean, if we add capitalist intentionality behind it as poets, like the idea of like a product towards the end of that, then the poem becomes less of a prayer or a less of that address, in that we are, constantly thinking about what people are going to say. I mean, this is the very reason that I wear eyeliner, right? Because I want people to see me.
It's not because you look fabulous?
Oh, well, I mean, if you say so. But yeah, like, I mean, I think that like, it's still to say that I'm not concerned about that, especially with like the pressures of tenure and promotion riding heavily on the kind of work that I produce, as well as the way that schools are designed to have you think in terms of projects. What is your thesis? What is your dissertation? What is your object that you're creating? It kind of, for me, works against that original impulse, which was actually, to hide secrets that I didn't want to keep inside of me anymore. And so, I'll go back to the journals that I kept and I'll be like, oh my God, these were so, like, first of all, that was a lot of drama. Second of all, like, I'm glad that no one will read these. But then, like, it shifted into something, it became something where, when I started to share with folks, when I thought about these ideas of community. And then when I think about, like, the Chutney poem in general, like, that's about, like, thinking about how oral Caribbean poetics can be harnessed in this new North American space. So part of that is a very public creation as well.
Absolutely. I have all of my journals from starting when I was 15, and it is wild when you crack some of those open. Oh, the heartbreak, the boys, the queer desire, But I also like I have such compassion for that person because he's with me,
Yeah.
like tonight, So, okay, I want to be mindful of the time, but I do want to end with this question. And I've been hearing this question a lot, but I just want to know, how are you both cultivating joy? What are you doing to cultivate joy?
I'll go first. Well, I'm lucky I have a wonderful husband who's in the other room listening to this podcast. And I meant to tell you, Dare, he's new to your poetry, Rajiv, but when you read for my book launch, he told me how much he enjoyed your poetry. So you have another fan out there in the world. He's a wonderful person and he keeps me laughing, and that's helpful in the world, but also really gesturing more and more intentionally towards family and friendships in the world, and being a little more vulnerable, being a little more concerned and caring. I'm just, the last year again, I don't know if I'm doing it better. I might not be, but I'm intending to. I'm trying my ass off to. But I'm finding joy in Instagram videos of Black folks dancing on police cars as they talk about Black trans lives mattering. Those make me cry, but cry and laugh, and want to spin and twerk and dip with them. So I'm finding my joy in youth and in rebellion and in speaking truth to power and in friends and family and in possibility.
That's beautiful, Jubi. I thank you for this question. I think this is such an important thing to kind of like end with and to like, constantly ask each other. I am getting a lot of joy from, yes, my own family, meaning like my partner, my my dog and my cat. If you follow me on Instagram, that's probably all you see. But then also like my nibblings, you know, I FaceTime with my sister pretty constantly, and I'm seeing my newest little nephew and watching him grow, and he's just the coolest. Like my sister will put on Aaliyah and they will dance together, and he's like 15 months. It's like the cutest thing ever. So that's one thing. I'm dreaming about the ocean. Like there's ocean in Massachusetts, absolutely. I live just outside of Boston. It's different than the ocean in Florida or like the Caribbean or Hawaii. And these are all places that I'm from, you know, and so, you know, I put on videos of the ocean, and whether it's animals in the ocean or just the ocean, you know, in the background while I'm actually working this summer, which is nice, you know, to constantly to be reminded of these are places in the world that I'm going to be able to go soon. I went to a bookstore this morning with my partner, and then last week I went to 2 bookstores, and I felt like it's been over a year since I've been to a bookstore, and this was my life. Like, you know, what was I doing? I was in a bookstore, you know what I mean? So that was really, really neat. I'm also pushing myself outside of my comfort zone, in that, like, you know, I'm writing more and more prose. I'm drafting a novel, which is like, you know, that might never see the light of day, to be quite honest, but you know, there's all these different kinds of things. So thank you. How about you, Dare?
So thank you. I am working on projects in my house. I've also decided that every morning I'm gonna do an art morning. So I'm coloring mandalas with these like amazing markers that I have. And also I've decided to pick up the guitar again and to practice. And it is deeply frustrating, but I'm going through with it because I just want to know how to play the guitar so I can play you all a fabulous song. But I'm strapping in for the journey. There's YouTube, and my fingers hurt, and that's okay. And I'm also spending a lot of time with my cat, who brings me great joy. And yes, you all should follow Rajiv's Instagram account for his dog and cat. It's the cutest. Thank you both so much for being here and joining me in community. Speaking of bookstores, support your local brick and mortar, buy these folks' books. Amanda's gonna drop that in the chat. We wanna remind everyone links to book sales will be in the chat, and WeHo Reads is supporting Book Soup in West Hollywood, and links to purchase books are also on the Eventbrite YouTube pages. And WeHo Reads is a celebrated literary series presenting new and noteworthy authors of interest to the West Hollywood community. WeHo Reads is presented by the City of West Hollywood's Art Division. Thank you so much both for being here for our last event. I am grateful to you. Thank you so much. We're going to bring back Jayson.
Thank you, Rajiv.
He's going to close us out.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you both so much.
Thanks all for having me. Dare, it's never too late to learn the guitar. I'll give you some tips. Here we go.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Night, bye, and thank you.